Hello, welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to the disturbing movie Iceberg. Finally, I know, finally, part 2 is out. Just before I jump right into things, I just have something to say, so please watch, because you could possibly help me. Here is a list of movies which I wasn't able to watch, so if you do, know how to get access to them, or if you own them, and are willing to share them, please contact me on Reddit or whatever. Also, after this video is out, I will be live streaming, already watching the next tier. I probably won't start until about like an hour after this video is out, but I will do that tonight, which will be fun. But I guess, without further ado, I might as well just get straight into the video. Okay, so starting off tier 4, this is the tier known as sort of Extremism. The first movie in here is Slow Torture Puke Chamber. And I think I'm just going to group these three together because they're in a trilogy of a film, even though I believe there's a fourth one out now, but it isn't in this iceberg. So you have, first is Slaughtered Vomit Dolls, then it's Regurgitated Sacrifice, then Slow Torture Puke Chamber, I believe. I might have got the order wrong. I've had enough of this film, to be honest, so I don't really want to research it anymore. But anyway, starting with the first one, Slaughtered Vomit Dolls. I didn't like it. I've given it a 2 out of 10. It wasn't bad as I thought it was, based on the title alone, I would say. But it still was pretty bad. The whole thing just, didn't make sense to me. And also the director, Lucifer Valentine, has recently, been, under the accusations and things on how he makes his movies. Again, I don't know if they're true, but obviously it makes watching the movies and thinking about what I have watched a lot more, I guess, dark. Another thing about it, there was a funny bit, but I don't know if it was supposed to be funny, where this person had a guitar and he was playing it. But the whole movie is very disorientated and very low quality. And everything just looks wet because they're thrown up on everything. Because this is a genre known as vomit gore or something but the worst scene for me, definitely when there's this man who just keeps throwing up in a jug and then just drinks it and then I'll just throw up again. So yeah, that was pretty bad. Next we have Regurgitated Sacrifice. I've given this one a 4 out of 10 because this was better than the first. Again, I didn't understand any of it, and it has something to do with Kurt Cobain at the end. They're at his house. They're at Kurt Cobain's house, which is very weird, and they're on his fence where he has loads of messages from fans and stuff. They wrote Regurgitated Sacrifice, I believe. Quite weird, but this one had good effects and good gore that wasn't vomit, which I enjoyed. And the worst scene for me, there was a scene with a squid, and they were just, just throwing up on the squid and things like that. And it's just it gets to a point where it's almost too ridiculous to believe, and then you just remember what you're watching, and you're just what am I doing? And that's how I felt while watching these movies. And the last one, Slow Torture Puke Chamber. I've given this one a 2 out of 10. Again, this one wasn't very good. Couldn't tell you the story. And by the way, I'm not neglecting the story. When I actually understand the story, I will tell it to you on these movies. But this one, I couldn't tell you, honestly. This is probably the most tame one in comparison to the other two. Apart from the last scene. The last scene is just bizarre. But I'll get onto that in a minute. And there was a few funny moments again. There was a toy baby, and he was throwing up on the toy baby. And then it wasn't funny because I learnt that that was supposed to be a real baby, but obviously you can't throw up on a real baby and then put it in a movie. But yeah, there was this whole scene at that end with a lot of throwing up and then, drinking it again. And also there's a pregnant lady, and it's just I don't know, pregnant lady. It's just very uncomfortable. But I'm going to summarize the whole thing based on what I know, because I knew a decent amount about these films before I watched them. like about the story, but solely watching the films, I can't tell you the story. So the story is, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's about a girl who's like a prostitute and a stripper or something. And then like towards the end of the first film, she dies. And then the second film is her on her way to hell, but she died on the same day as Kurt Cobain. That's why the weird link is there. And then the third one is like infinite timelines of like that same girl or something like that called Amelia. It's very confusing, but yeah, you definitely wouldn't get that from the films, believe me. Anyway, moving on to our next film, we have Life and Death of a Urno Gang, because I can't say that word. Uh, this was quite good to be honest. I'll give it like a 7 out of 10. It had a very good story, surprisingly. It was about an adult director who got like a crew together to do like live adult shows across Serbia. But then he's like approached by someone who wants to make snuff films, and then they do them on the side for money. And then it's sort of the moral balance of, like when do we stop? How many of these do we have to do? And like the whole crew just like spiraling into depression and things like that. It was like good acting and a good story, and it had a very satisfying ending, to be honest. But there are like a few scenes in it which are quite disturbing, such as when the whole group gets forced upon by like these town folks, and then there's like obviously then there's all the snuff films, but they're quite interesting to be honest because they're people that want to die, if that makes sense. Like they just send them these crazy people who are like excited to die. Um, but yeah, this film quite good. Next we have August Underground. This is a very 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 infamous film, and it was pretty good. I'll give it like a 6 or a 7. I'm not quite sure, around that. It's very creepy and it looks like disgusting, like the camera and everything, and like the whole basement where they are. Everything just looks gross, which is like it adds to it. And the story, if there really is a story, is just about like two crazy people who just go around like kidnapping and killing people. And the whole film is like on a camera, but then in between scenes of murder, there is scenes of them just like in the car or like going to the shops to like add to the realism, because it's meant to be like a tape of a camera, like you just found it and you're watching it, and there's all these like really disturbing things in between, like their day-to-day lives. The worst bit for me, I'm not really sure. The opening scene is quite bad, and also the closing scene is bad as well. It's just like how like cruel and violent the people are. It's actually like quite worrying how well they played the characters. But yeah, this film's quite good. And there is 2 sequels, I believe. There's August Underground Mordum, and then there's another one which I can't think of the name of. Next we have Snuff 102. I really enjoyed this film. This is a 6 for me. And the story, it's about 3 girls who get kidnapped and taken for a snuff film, like the usual. But it's the story which really made me like this film, because at the beginning it does one of the things where the beginning is like towards the end, if that makes sense. Like it shows you a clip from the end, and then it's like 2 days earlier or something like that. It was like that, so it obviously had something to work towards. And basically what it would do is it would have like back and forth from present to previous on how these girls ended up where they were, which I thought was very interesting and good to watch. And also the main girl is kind of like a twist how she gets taken, because you're like rooting for her, and then she like discovers stuff. I don't want to like spoil it completely, but it's quite cool. It's quite a cool film, and I enjoyed it. And then at the end, again, very satisfying, because she escapes at the end, and then there's like a whole chase scene and things like that. It's not just the movie where it's just killing people for the sake of it. Like these people actually have a chance, which I liked. Yeah, it kind of felt like a low budget and more disturbing Hostel, and I really like Hostel. That's one of my favorite films. But yeah, the film, or not the film, the scene which I hated the most was there was another pregnant lady scene, and like the man just like did a just stomped, and then it just like crush, and then like watermelon gone. Just imagine that. That's all I'm gonna say. After this, we have guinea pig, and I'm not gonna go too much into detail because I have a whole video on all 10 guinea pig films. So if you're interested in watching that, yeah, watch that because that's a good video. I'm proud of that video. Next, we have Necromantic, and in a weird way, I kind of liked this one. I'll give this one like a 7. There were some moments that were like funny to me, which weren't supposed to be, I don't think, unless they were. I don't know. There's like one scene where someone gets hit with a shovel and then like their head just comes like clean off. I thought that was quite funny. But in all the funny parts, there are some very disturbing parts. So the story is about a man who works for a company who like move corpses at crime scenes and things like that. Because he's a necrophile, he takes advantage of his job, and includes having, with the corpses, and his girlfriend is into that as well, but they're kind of only together because they share the same interests, let's say. So he brings home like a fresh one, and then there's this very, very disturbing scene of them getting it on. And then like she leaves him, and then he gets sad, and he does some stuff, and then he like he kills himself. But obviously because he likes death, he's also pleasuring at the same time, and it ends with him stabbing himself in the stomach, and then climaxing, and it turns from white to red. Oh my god, if this video doesn't get taken down, I will be so surprised. I'm trying to describe these as least graphic as possible. I'm having such a hard time. But anyway, that's that movie. Yeah, as I said, I weirdly enjoyed this one. Next is Viva la Muerte, and I couldn't find this one. This is one of the ones I couldn't find. From what I saw, it was like a Spanish film in the Civil War or something like that. But yeah. Next is Where the Dead Goes to Die. And literally right before I was recording this video, a couple of creeps, which is like a YouTube channel which does reviews and stuff, they literally just uploaded a video on this, so it's kind of fresh in my mind. But yeah, it's not good. It's very, because it's animated, they do a lot of stuff which would have got like taken down and got them like FBI swatted at their house, but because it's animated, they can kind of get away with it, but it's still just not good. I don't know if there really was a story. It's very weird. It's about like mind transfer and like the devil and things like that. Yeah, it's like it's kind of like a mind fuck. That's like the best way to describe this film. After about 20 minutes, I kind of just like zoned out, and then when I regained consciousness, the film was over. It felt like it was like hypnotizing me. But the worst scene for me is there's this dog, and it forces a child named Tommy, I believe, to engage in, with him in front of his dead parents. That's all I'm gonna say. This film just. Next is Melancholy de Angel. I know a lot of people really like this film. I found that out after I wrote my review. I watched this one on stream because it's like a 3-hour film and I didn't want to be bored. I'm gonna be honest here. If you like this film, that's fine, but my attention span is about an hour, I would say, for films. And then after that, I kind of start to get bored. So for a film that's nearly 3 hours long, I didn't like it, to be honest. It felt very boring and like stuff took long to happen. And I know that's part of storytelling, but it's not my favorite type of storytelling, if you know what I'm saying. There's about 4 or 5 scenes which are bad, but I feel like they're too spaced out to the point where it kept my attention, if that makes sense. And the worst scene for me, oh, I must have been angry when I wrote these notes. I put the worst scene was the whole film. Okay, I was very angry after that stream, apparently. But yeah, sorry if you like this film. I just personally didn't like it. Anyway, after that we have Juvenile Crime, and I couldn't find Juvenile Crime, so I watched Cement. And I thought that this was a good replacement because they're both about the Junko Furuta case, so I watched that one. I've given this one like a 7 or an 8. It's a good film. I still don't know how I feel about it because the case of her is like one of the worst murder torture things in like all of history, in my opinion. And I don't really think it's right to make a film on it, especially focused on the main person behind it. I did like it for the fact that it toned down a lot of what actually happened to her and sort of showed it in, I guess, little parts when in reality it happened a lot worse and things like that. And if you don't know, uh, they did things such as like lighting fireworks inside her. They beat her constantly for 40 days. I think it's suspected that she was, you know, over 100 times, I believe. And I believe that she was, done by the 4 boys multiple times a day. Things like that. It's just like a really awful and sad story. But yeah, when they accidentally kill her, they then put her in a barrel, then fill it up with cement. And the really sad thing is that because they were all under 18 at the time, they got away with manslaughter because technically they didn't mean to kill her, which is just like disgusting. And then they got out in like a few years. But yeah, this is interesting, but also a very sad case. I don't really feel like saying there was a worse scene because it feels like kind of distasteful to like rank what the worst thing that happened to a person was. So I'm not gonna do that. But I don't believe that the original one, Juvenile Crime, is worse or any more like explicit than this one. If it is, let me know. But I did see like a few clips from it, and I didn't think it was. And lastly, we have Philosophy of a Knife. I've given this one a 5 out of 10. It's a good premise, but it's 2 hours and there's 2 parts of it, meaning that 4 hours in total. I didn't want to watch the second part, even though I got quite lucky because sometimes the first and second part are seen as like one film. So I missed out on 2 hours there, which is good. It's in black and white, but not a good black and white like the Human Centipede 2. It's kind of like just like an average black and white, do you know what I mean? Like the Human Centipede 2 had some like grit to it. This is just like black and white filter, basic, that's it. And the plot is about experiments that were done in World War II and sort of showing what apparently was done. Nothing really stands out to me. It was all a blur, like, of what happened to them. It was kind of just like 5 minute segments of like, we're cutting this person open, and now we're doing this. Now we're pulling someone's teeth out, and it's just like all that. Nothing really special about it. And the worst scene for me, I guess, yeah, the teeth pulling, because I don't like teeth pulling. That's one of the things which makes me go Ugh. But anyway, that is the 4th tier done, also known as the Extremism tier. And moving on to tier 5, which is also known as the Weird Grossness tier. So starting things off, we have Woman's Flesh, My Red Guts. And this reminded me a lot of Guinea Pig. It was short, it was sweet, and it was gory. So I've given it a 7 out of 10. It's just like a 40-minute film that has a very, very basic story and just tries to cram in as much practical effects that it can in, and it doesn't try to be anything special, which is what I love about like some of the early Guinea Pig films and this film, because it's not trying to be like some pretentious film that goes on for about 10 hours. It's literally it just wants to be gory, which is, fine. I quite enjoy that. So the story, it's about a woman, her husband slash boyfriend, I don't know, leaves her, and then like she just gets sad, and it's kind of similar to Guinea Pig 3 because it's in the self mutilation aspect. But she seems to not die, which is quite weird. She should have probably died ages ago. At least in Guinea Pig 3, the joke was that he was invincible. Yeah, but anyway, she does things like, starts off like basic, like a few cuts, and then it like slowly escalates to like eating her own intestines and then things like that, which definitely the worst part. But as I said, it's quite like a fun little movie, and it's only like 40 minutes. So if you're into like extremism, things like that, I recommend this one. Next is Ostermontag, which is also known as Snuff Holocaust. This is very bad. This film. It was bad until like the last 10 minutes. Then it got more bad, but in a good way, if that makes sense. Like the first 50 minutes were just boring, and it had like a few scenes, but the effects were like awful. Especially for the time, it was like in the 90s. Like there's a lot of films which had done stuff a lot better, like even before that film came out. But there's not really a story. It's just like 50 minutes of messing about, and then like 10 minutes of like insane torture, which is the worst and the best bit about the film, if that makes sense. Not the best bit because I enjoy this kind of stuff, but most interesting to watch. Let's just put it that way. So it's just like it starts off with something which I'm not a fan of, which starts with R, which I can't say, but I just hate when that has to be a thing in it. Like why can't you just leave that bit out? But anyway, it's just that with a lot of hacking and a lot of body fluids, which is probably the worst part about it. The stuff that shouldn't be there, that made it quite bad to watch. But apart from that, it was kind of just like a boring 50 minutes and then like a kind of interesting 10 minutes that was kind of disturbing. But yeah, that's all I really have to say on this film. Next, we have the infamous Girl Hell 1999. This was surprisingly good. I've given it like a 6 or a 7. It has all like the basic exploitation film stuff and a bit more. Again, the only thing I don't like about this film is the the R word, which I can't say. But anyway, the story is about a girl who lives with like an abusive father who does the R stuff to her sister, who's also disabled, just to make it worse. And then meanwhile, that girl, she like goes to school, and then there's like these two mass artists who they've had enough of doing that, and then they just want to ask her out, and then when she says no, they just go straight back to doing it. They go to her house, they like kill her father, and then do the stuff to her sister. Meanwhile, the main girl gets like kidnapped by this rich person, and then gets her piss stolen, and then she's set free. It's hard to explain, but it's kind of a good story. Apart from all the the stuff which happened, I was kind of intrigued, which is quite rare this late on to be intrigued by a story. But yeah, if there was less, sexual assault, then this would be a quite good film. But the worst part is probably knowing that like, the father does the stuff to disabled sister as well as the boys, which is just it's just not nice to see. Um, this is a depressing mood. Anyway, moving on. We have My Chan's Daily Life, the movie. I couldn't get this, so I read the manga. That was probably a mistake. I've wrote in my notes here, word for word. The manga was the worst thing I have seen. And I still stand by this. There's something about, like, manga that's always worse than movie. Not so much visually, but the ideas, if that makes sense. Like, what actually happens in it, because there's some stuff which would just be really hard to make look real on the big screen, which is one of the reasons I'm really interested in watching this movie. It's about a maid who's immortal, and she like grows back limbs and things, so she's hired out to like rich people to do whatever they want with. And there's a lot of chapters. There's like 200 pages. I read them all in one sitting. It was really bad, and I have kind of like a past history with accidentally stumbling across mangas like this when I was like 13. Uh, but yeah, it reminded me of them times. But there's just things like being chopped up and then like forced upon and then like killing them with their penis, and it's just so like I don't know how to describe it. I honestly can't. I would say read it for yourself, but I'm not over exaggerating, and I hate over exaggerating, being like, do not watch this movie will kill you. Yeah, do not read this manga unless you like, unless you're interested in it. Just from me, it's just, it's one of the ones where after you read it, you kind of sit back and you just think about what the fuck you just read, and you're kind of like, okay, and then you just have to process everything. And I sat for like a solid 5 minutes just like processing what I had just read, and I contemplated my life choices for a second after that. But apart from all them downsides, I guess read it because it is kind of creative in the way it does stuff. Yeah, that's a good thing I can give it. Anyway, the next one is Eccentric Psycho Cinemas, and I could not find this one, so moving straight on to the next one, Tumbling Doll of Flesh. And I'm assuming that most people watching this already know quite a bit about this film, but this is a classic, quote unquote classic, in the term exploitation film. Uh, yeah, it's alright. I kind of enjoyed it. 6 out of 10. The effects aren't really that great considering today's standard, but you know, it's just a film which is quite famous for certain things. But it's about two young adult actors who are kind of like directed, and the scenes get like more and more uncomfortable. And then when they want to go, they like bonk the girl on the head and then tie her up and then do the chopping guinea pig style. But this is where it overdoes guinea pig here. They direct the man to then, you know, continue doing his adult work on her while they're, you know, chopping her up, and like puts it in holes that are freshly made. And that's the worst part about it, and that's all I'm gonna say because I don't really want to linger on that too much. But anyway, moving on to the Necrophiles. This was very enjoyable. This was very funny and also very enjoyable. 7 out of 10. The acting was so bad that it's funny, and it was a dark comedy, which is like my favorite genre. The gore was good and it made me laugh a lot. The story is, there's this murderer, and he gets killed, and then this satanic cult resurrect him as a zombie, and he goes around R'ing, which is the part which I didn't really like about it, and killing. Like, why couldn't you just make him like a killing zombie? That would have been more. That would have been better. But anyway, like there's like two survivors of the cult. They run away, and then like these police officers are after him, and I laughed a lot because it's just refreshing to watch something like this. I mean, luckily there is only like one or two R scenes, and the rest is like killing, which was quite good. But the satanic cult members, they're quite funny because you know, like when everything goes to shit, they like try to turn to Christianity, things like that. It's just like a fun movie, so I recommend this one, and it's not that long either. I think it's like just over an hour, so yeah. And next we have The Gateway Meat. I couldn't find this one. I'm very intrigued by it though, because the poster or like the cover art for it is very disturbing, and it made me quite excited to watch this one, but then I couldn't find it, so I was a little bit sad. But moving on to the last movie in this tier, The Taming of Rebecca. This is the first movie which I didn't watch all of it, and I'll tell you why. As Wendigoon said it in his disturbing movie Iceberg, Kif, which if you're not familiar with that, is just adult. That was just his way of saying, you know, like it's literally just that. Like I got like 15 minutes in, and there was just like this prolonged Kif scene that was just, I was just watching. I was just like, you know, I was watching that type, and I just didn't want to watch an hour and a half of it. Especially when I read there's not really any disturbing factor once you get past the shock of naked people, you know, which I'm not shocked by. I don't see a naked person, I'm like, oh my god, that was disturbing. Apparently there is like one scene where they like, it has some needles or something, but, you know, that's like nothing I haven't seen before. I didn't really want to watch an hour and a half Kif film, so I just turned it off. And also, to add on top of that, there was no dialogue. It was literally just, you know, Kif. it was just that, which with like a few segments, 5 minutes in between, with a little bit of story, and it'd just be like a 15-minute kiff scene. So yeah, didn't really want to watch this one, so I didn't. And moving on to the last tier of this video, it is the Shockumentary tier, which is tier 6. And I just want to say, before I get into this tier, this is the one which I couldn't find, like, any of them. I think I watched, like, around 4 or 5 out of, like, the 8. So this was quite sad that I couldn't watch all of them. And I also know that this has a very large audience, like the Shockumentary. And I'm very new to this. So, if I say something that, like, isn't right, don't get angry at me. I'm not like a I'm not an expert in shockumentaries or anything, but I'm just gonna say my first opinions on them. So starting things off, we have Traces of Death. This was surprisingly good. I liked this one. I've given it like a 7. When I first like heard about this and got into it, I thought it was just gonna be a bunch of gore and shock videos that was, like labeled as educational just to get away with it. But it was surprisingly interesting and actually like educational if you have the stomach to get through it, obviously. Um, Especially for me because I've always been interested in things to that like happen to the body after death. I don't know why that has always like fascinated me, like decomposition, autopsies, things like that. So when it like showed videos from like autopsies and things, I was actually like really interested. Like as far back as I can remember, I used to like watch the BBC Three, which is like a UK thing. They do loads of documentaries. They do them on like everything. They don't hold back, BBC Three, to be honest. And yeah, they had like ones on autopsies and things like that. And I used to watch all of them. So yeah, this was interesting for me. It had a bit of like animal cruelty, but I wasn't really a fan of that. It also had like photos of aftermaths of like mass shootings, suicides, things like that. But it didn't linger on them too long to the point where it became like distasteful. It just kind of showed it to you. Um, but one of the biggest things which people say about this film is the low budget, the bad music, and the terrible voiceover. But I will agree with that. It is terrible, but it kind of adds like a charm to it. And as this is the first shockumentary that I have watched, I can say that I enjoyed it. So the most disturbing part for me, I guess, one of the surgery scenes, but like the one where it was on like a child. I don't know. I guess that was like kind of weird to see because you don't normally see it on things like that. But yeah, good movie. And next we have Faces of Death. And this was the original one, and Traces of Death and other movies kind of like copied them. So this was the original one, but I liked Traces of Death more, in my opinion. Mainly because it was all real. Traces of Death is the first shockumentary which claims to be all real clips, I believe, whereas Faces of Death has some real clips, some fake clips. And you can tell when some of them are fake and some of them are real. So I've given it like a 5 out of 10. There's a lot more like animal abuse and killing in this one, so I didn't really like it as much. And it's not as graphic as the other one, but it was still pretty good. I still enjoyed it. There was some like shocking bits here and there, such as the like this cannibal tribe scene, which is the only scene I can't figure out if it's real or fake because it looks like good enough to be real, but the premise is so weird that I thought it was fake. So I'm still in my head figuring out if that one's real or not, which I guess is a kind of cool concept to this film because you're like, is it real? Is it not? But yeah, I enjoyed this one. Next we have Mondo Cane, and this was a very old film, and it's basically showing things around the world that Western audiences would be disturbed by because they're not used to it, such as hunting, things in tribes, all of that stuff. So like it shows like people, like catching their food, skinning it, cooking it, like animals eating each other, things like that. And the main purpose of the film was to shock you know, people who aren't used to seeing this, and just sort of show that they're not the only people in the world, and what they do is, you know, nothing compared to what tribes and all that do, which was a cool concept. A bit long for my liking, but yeah, I thought it was a pretty good film. I give it like a 6. And the most disturbing scene, uh, I'm not sure. I guess like any of the like hunting bits, because it is like very detailed, but nothing like completely terrifyingly shocking, if you know what I mean. And now, skipping over junk films, Africa Ado, Buried in the Sand, and Banned from Television, we go to Orokozo the Imbala. Orozako. I don't know how to say this, his name. My favorite film. This is like the best film I have seen on this iceberg in a while. Um, I love this. I've given it like a 7 or an 8. Uh, it's just so good. It's just literally just the life of Orokozo, who is an Mbala, which is a person who gets hold of bodies either after the autopsy, or just like after, you know, they've been found dead, and he, you know, cuts them open, takes all the stuff out, cleans them, dresses them up, puts makeup on them for a funeral, things like that. In Colombia, because this is like there's death everywhere in Colombia, especially in this film. Like, I think it said something about like 2 people a day normally, or something like that. And there's like kids in the street, and they're just like used to it, just like seeing corpses and things, which is kind of sad. But like at the same time, this movie was very educational and showing me things which I didn't know before. You know, I didn't know anything really. I didn't know it was like that out there, not that bad. But yeah, it's just about him and how he gets on with his life, which I thought was really interesting. It shows like a very, very unfiltered view on like the poorness of the village and how death is treated, which is good because it didn't you know, it didn't try to sweeten things up or anything. It showed it like as it was, meaning it was like a faithful documentary, which I really like this. It was definitely a good film, and I recommend it if you're like interested in seeing things like that. But 100% watch this film. I really like this. And skipping over Deadfall Red and Arcothos da Morte Saga, we move to Black Metal Veins, which is the return of Lucifer Valentine again. Which is the person who did the vomit gore. Um, this is my favorite film that I have seen by him so far. It wasn't as intense or confusing as the other films, so I'll give this like a 5 or a 6. And it's a documentary on a group of heroin and like crack addicts, and it just documents their lives. And apparently, he said that he wouldn't intervene if anything happened. He was just gonna like record it as it was. It's unclear really whether or not all of this is real or not. The drug use is 100% most likely real, but I'm not sure if some bits were scripted or not. It's very, you know, confusing. There's 2 deaths in the film. There's one at the end, which was supposed to be real because it was on camera, but then I believe Lucifer Valentine said it wasn't real, but people still think it is real. I'm not sure. There's a lot of confusion. And then there's another one early on in the film because there's like a gap from when he records, and apparently he got shot in a drug trade gone wrong, which there's no proof that it did or did not happen, if you know what I mean. So it could be real, that bit, to be honest. But the death at the end is most likely not real, and it's just a very like morbid view on, you know, like drug addiction. And I think the message that he was trying to say was good in saying like, you know, like don't get into drugs like that much. But at the same time, I feel like that wasn't his goal for the film. I don't think he set out making this film to teach people not to get into drugs. I feel like he did it for like another personal reason, to be honest, knowing him. But yeah, pretty decent-ish film, I would say. And of course, the last one, the dark side of adult film, I couldn't find, which means that is the end of the video. I still have quite a few to watch though from this video, so I'm hoping that people can help me out there, and I can watch them and then put it at the start of the last video, because I am not looking forward to watching anything on the 7th or 8th tier. So pray for me. Please pray for me. But anyway, I really hope you enjoyed this video. As I said, if you're watching this like near the time it came out, I'm most likely live streaming, watching some of the other ones, which will be fun, so why not, give it a watch. Also, subscribe if you like this video, because a new one will be coming out, and also, like, new videos and things will be coming out in between that time. Give it a like, please. And apart from that, I hope you have a good day, and thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.